Impact Wrestling. It's Slammiversary week. Each day this week I've put out a little match that I've enjoyed over the years from Slammiversary. We looked at 2007, 2011, 2019, 2020. Me and my boy John, that's my son, my wee lad, he's picked a match and we'll be doing it tomorrow. Look, man, it's a good little match. Wouldn't be my pick, but John loves all the wrestlers that we've picked. It's quite a modern one in that sense. I believe it might have been last year or 2021, but it's definitely going to be a fun little watch with my wee lad. I've actually really enjoyed just posting every day this week, little 30-minute videos. It's just been super fun. It's good for the mental health as well, and because I love this product, I'm willing to put my time and my effort and my passion into doing this. And I think Skullsy Talks Impact Wrestling, in the future, we are going to be doing more stuff. We are going to be doing more stuff. Not just talking about the pay-per-views, not just talking about the weekly show, but history, man. History. This is how much I've enjoyed doing this. In that sense. So I want to look at Team Canada. I want to look at the British boot camp. I want to do all of that because I remember watching it and I remember loving it. And do you know what? I rewatch it on Impact Plus. All right. In that sense. But listen, let's jump into this. Let's look at what's happened at Impact Wrestling. A few hours ago, I watched it at 5 o'clock in the morning in the UK. But I want to start off with some interesting things. So Boston Open Radio this week, Billy Ray announces that his partner will be on there. It turns out to be Dina. Now, I have said for the past 18 months, Dina's talent is so good. From the point of him moving away from Jake Something and moving away from Eric Young with Violent by Design and having his new faction being Design, and seeing the design sort of like not fall apart, but sort of like become something different, has grown him as a professional wrestler. Plus, I'm also obsessed with, I'm kind of obsessed with him as a human in a way as well, because he's actually a motivational speaker and he's brought that to wrestling as well, motivational coach and stuff like that. And I think Dina's kind of storyline coming into this with Scott D'Amore is super interesting, super fun, because he's gone when he first came in. Scott D'Amore thought I was a Jeff Jarrett guy and sort of like I laughed at him and all this sort of stuff. So he's pissed off about that. So that is actually quite a good idea for a partner. I think well done for Impact Wrestling for replacing Maplin with Dina in that sense. I mean, I kind of was hoping when I heard the rumour that it might have been D1 Dudley, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Do you know what I mean? Well, we don't know. That still might happen. Who knows? The other great thing is with PCO last week being burnt alive by Mackling and Bully. All right, being burnt alive. Scott D'Amore jumped on his phone and was talking to the old dog and bone, and he was saying, "Can you come back to life, mate? Because it seems like PCO can't now." And then it kind of hinted at a Team Canada sort of reunion, or possibly bringing in one of the old guys from Team Canada. And I was going through this morning in my noodle, in my head, the choices that we have. We have A1. Now that'd be an interesting choice. We haven't seen him since about 2018. Johnny Devine still works as the Indies Ducks. He's a wrestling coach currently. We've got Silverstein still in the Indies. We've got Teddy Hart, which I very much doubt. Okay, but if that does happen, might be interesting, but I doubt it will be Teddy Hart because he's does some dodgy things, doesn't he, in that sense. We've got Young, we've got Robert Roode, and we've got Pete Williams, all contracted to WWE. Now, if it is a member from Team Canada, I'm going to guess it's Evans. He currently doesn't have a contract with AEW. So that might be a choice. I'm not sure if he's injured or anything like that, but that could be a choice, and that could be a very, 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 very good choice. And it's interesting. He's not even Canadian, but that could be the choice. But I'm leaning towards Evans or A1 if it is an old school member of Team Canada. But I'm kind of going to the viewpoint as well that there's a big possibility that his Canadian friend Josh Alexander could be coming back at this point. So we don't know, but I mean, I think there's more links with A1 in a lot of ways. I'm just throwing this out. I'm guessing. I know nothing. I'm know nothing. Right, but A1 would be an interesting choice because his valet, I believe, his former valet was Jay Chung, which I believe is married to Josh Alexander. So that there could be a link in there, maybe. Who knows? But it's some exciting things happening at Slammiversary. Okay, Slammiversary. The reason why I'm saying that is because I've just literally yesterday watched SummerSlam 92. Okay, so Slammiversary. So it is very interesting stuff going down. I'm going to do a prediction show tomorrow afternoonish. We'll let everything settle down, do you know what I'm saying? Or tomorrow evening possibly. Let everything settle down just in case any news or any changes comes in, do you know what I mean? But this week's show at Impact Wrestling, July, okay, what the date we're on? I don't even know what date we're on. July 13th. The July 13th episode, okay, of Impact Wrestling was a good wrestling. It was just good. I'm not going to say it's an amazing and an incredible episode, but it was just good and it's what we need. Now, interestingly enough, I was talking to a indie wrestler from the UK currently. He's local to the area that I'm in. And we were talking about how weekly wrestling shows, alright, don't always need to be high echelon amazing. They just have to be telling a story, showing you what is happening. Alright? And what happens currently in weekly wrestling shows, and I'm going to criticise AEW on this. AEW does this great thing where it does a pay-per-view pretty much every single week, so there's nothing special to look forward to, which is nothing wrong with it. I watch AEW, I enjoy AEW, but I kind of think having a pay-per-view every single week, what I mean by that is your weekly show is sort of like developed into a pay-per-view. Okay, kind of spoils things. I mean, it was like I said this last week, I think. There was a pro wrestler in a podcast recently that said something like the super kick has become an arm drag. And that's the kind of concept, all right, that I think a lot of wrestling promotions do. I think WWE do it as well in a different way. But I think Impact are consistent in the sense of they try to make the pay-per-views as special as possible. And especially with Slammiversary. Slammiversary always feels like it's the most special wrestling event. And this is what this week's episode was about. It was about trying to tell a story, all right? And that's why it was enjoyable. I mean, if you know me, you know that I'm crazy about the Rascals. Love the Rascals, but I love ABC as well. Okay, so this first match was absolutely brilliant. Two of the biggest and the best talents currently, I think, in the wrestling industry, being Wentz versus Bay. I put out a tweet a couple of days ago that I believe people are Marlon Reed, Wentz, Bay, Trey Miguel, Ace Austin are in this echelon of the best wrestlers in the business. Okay. And when this match came up, I was so excited about it because this match you can guarantee will be good. Okay. It doesn't need to be amazing, it just needs to be good because this is what this episode was about, is being good. And this is what the match gave us. It's the first time seeing Wentz, man, in 3 years. Okay. Alright, we also have to remember ABC have been the tag team champions, 133 days, okay? And these guys went at it brilliantly. I mean, we saw Wentz do his amazing moveset. Wentz is a guy, I've said this, mate, I must have arse-licked him like hell this week in a lot of ways, and last week, because Wentz for me is Shelley. Okay, Shelley of 10 years ago. All right, he moves exactly the same, has an ability exactly the same. Yes, everybody said that he has a lot of Motive City Machine Gun sort of like influence in the way he wrestles. He has a lot of that thing. So we see as we come in, all right, a lot of control, and that's what Wentz does when he walks in the ring. He isn't coming in to beat the shite out of you. He's coming into the ring to control you. Okay. But it was very interesting because you saw Bay come in, and Bay had the ability to control him as well, and that's what one of the things you've got to remember. Being an Englishman, we saw Bay quite a lot back in the day, and he's under 30. He's still got loads of greatness in him. He is one of them guys that fits the Impact sort of like model of X Division-y sort of characteristics of how he does, and we do see this happening. We see Bay come in and he had control of the thing, but control of the match, and then we saw Wentz take control by rolling out. It was one of them matches that we saw the Rascals go from cheeky little gits, all right, from back when they were in Impact before, to becoming legit bad guys. We saw Trey Miguel do chokeouts. We saw Trey wind up Ace Austin. We saw super kicks that were happening that didn't really need to happen, but they were all telling a story. Okay, and look, at the end of the day, the match ended with a kind of cheat, sort of like in a lot of ways, and I've got no problem with that at all, because it's telling what's going to happen next to the Rascals. And the Rascals basically went out the ring afterwards, and they confronted Santana, and they confronted Scott D'Amore, and basically said, look, are we in this four-way sort of tag match now? And Santana kicks off and says, no, you're not. Who said you were going to be in this? Are you out of your mind? Okay. And Trey Miguel was going, you're going to regret this. You're just going to regret this. Okay, so the Rascals in that ABC match was actually developing a character. We saw it wasn't necessarily about movesets or anything like that. We saw a lot of cheeky little cheating moves to win them the match. Okay, and it doesn't make it's not a big deal for the ABC in that sense, because the ABC are already established, they're already there, and what Impact are currently trying to do is re-establish the Rascals to possibly a new audience in a lot of ways. All right, because with new times come new audiences. All right, and this new time period. All right, we have more people watching since we've seen that Summerversary 2020. I think the development of more people being interested in Impact, since people like Kenny Omega having the Impact titles, since Christian having the Impact titles, since people like Trinity signing over, I think we're getting a lot more love, we're getting a lot more respect as a promotion. Okay, and it is reintegrating the Rascals in what they are here to do. So that match was a good match. That was an okay match. It did what it was supposed to do, okay? And the segment that followed afterwards did what it said to do. It was a good segment. It was good. I mean, I really enjoyed the promo of the Aldis Shelley fight, and I'm super excited about this. I mean, you can see that I love Nick Aldis, but I've got loads of Shelley stuff over here as well. Love both of them as wrestlers. And I entitled this in my head as Sensei Shelley, because the thing about it is, there has been an amazing amount of points about Shelley recently that a lot of people base their ability, all right, base their concept of how they move on how Shelley does. I mean, and Sabian, fundamentally. So you get people like Chris Bay, Ace Austin, Trey Miguel, Marlon Reed, Desmond, all these guys. They grew up watching people like Alex Shelley and Chris Sabian, and they developed their sort of style from what they do. And that's why I say that people like the Rascals are a modern day Motor City Machine Gun. People like ABC are a modern day Motor City Machine Gun and Motor City Machine Guns. And this promo was that kind of sort of like Sensei Shelley, all right. And I thought it was absolutely brilliant because he called Nick Aldis out on a few things, and it's one of the things that I think with modern wrestling it makes me smile. So back in the 90s, you had to be built in a certain time way. Hornswoggle said it on his, or Dylan Pascal said it recently on his podcast, that you had to be 6'2" and you had to be 250 pounds. And guys like Shelley, guys like Sabian, guys like Billy Kidman back in the day in WCW was kind of forgotten about, ignored, okay, unless they had some legit sort of like ability in the ring. Like, look at Dean Malenko and people like that. They're not the biggest guys, but bloody hell, they can move. They have a mat ability that's incredible. And Shelley makes a sort of like quotation saying, "You are built like a wrestler." 250 pounds, 6'2" or 6'4", whatever he is. And he says, that's what you are, Nick Aldis. That's what you are. You are built like a wrestler. And it was such a helpful promo because it is going back to the point that the small guys can be world champions as well. Look at Rey Mysterio in WWE, small guy, champion. You look at back in the day, people like Kenny Omega would have been seen as a small guy. Okay, all right. So this is the thing, and Chris Jericho fundamentally was seen as a small guy back in the day as well. So you've got these legit world champions like Shelley and all the other people I've just mentioned that are small guys that have the ability to be a world champion. All right, Rick Swann, Impact, is a great example as well. All right, you has the ability for being small and to be a world champion or a champion in that sense, not just a cruiserweight or an X Division champion, but a heavyweight big boy champion. Okay, and he makes this major point that, look, I might have showed you some ways, but I didn't show you everything. Okay, you might be built like a wrestler, but I invented the wheel. Now, that is such a really incredibly fair point. Okay, Shelley did. This modern day concept of wrestling is based around people like Shelley. And prior to that, Shelley got his sort of like ideas off people like Dynamite Kid. So this is going to be a match, and this is probably the most excited I am about any match on the card via the tag team tournament and the fuck it, I'm excited about the whole thing, to be fair. Okay, so I'm staying up all night watching this one, and I definitely am. So this Aldis Shelley fight is going to be good. We're going to talk about Aldis's promo in a bit, but it was the promos made this show in a lot of ways. So let's move on to Kevin Knight versus Mike Bailey. So the interesting thing about this match was, again, it was a match building for something different. It was building for the X Division, the Ultimate X match, which I am going to, at some point, do my top 5 of Ultimate X, because I think it's one of them original concepts that Impact had to make them special. And there was a certain time point when they were trying to move away from being a bit different and being a bit quirky. Okay, it's like King of the Mountain. We talked about this a few days ago. King of the Mountain, something that was different, bit quirky, made them original. I always say about this, it's sort of like I put Ultimate X to a similar concept of a Royal Rumble. When Pat Patterson invented the Royal Rumble, pretty much, it was seen a bit quirky, a bit different. Okay, and that's the same with Ultimate X. And this match was to build something along the lines of that. Okay, so the crowd walked in. Everybody loves Speedball Mike Bailey. God, man. A Canadian legend in a lot of ways. A wrestler that has the ability to be a world champion, has the ability to be an X Division champion, has the ability to take over wrestling. Okay, had some time period where he couldn't get a visa into America, but he's here now and he has done the business in Impact. Versus Kevin Knight, and do you know what I mean? You can't underrate this lad, right? This lad is top class stuff. He is a former IWGP Junior Tag Champion, okay? And do you know what I mean? That is a big boy belt, mate. Big boy belt. Is well deserved. But we've got to remember Bailey is a former X Division champion, and it was round about last year when he won it, okay? And yeah, this was a nice match. Look, man, the match starts extremely slow, and I'm not gonna lie, it starts slow. It's unusually slow for both of these wrestlers, but we saw a couple of arm drags. We saw Bailey pushing a submission, trying to turn it into a pin very early, and we moved into some great springboard movements by Bailey and some great control by Bailey. But what was special about this match was very interesting, was nothing to do with Bailey. Even though Bailey won this match, okay, towards the end, okay, this match was special because of Kevin Knight. And this was special because his ability for a vertical jump is fucking godlike. Alright, he was getting so high in them drop kicks. I'm talking about, mate, you're going to have to correct me. I'm not a WWE guy, or not overly a WWE guy. I watch it with my kids and stuff like that. So I always get them wrong. One of the Street Profits can jump like 500 miles in the air, but Kevin Knight was doing exactly the same thing. So his drop kicks were brilliant. Very X Division-y, very sort of like cruiserweight speed in the match. We saw Mike Bailey do quite a lot of his normal stuff, which was nothing wrong with that. But it was a good match. Okay, for me, the highlight of the match was Knight's ability to do crazy stuff. Okay, to do absolutely crazy stuff. But this is the bit that I'm excited for. I called this about 6 months ago. Okay, and no, not 6 months ago. I called this back in April with me and my mate Josh. We were having a conversation, and it's all actually on a podcast, so you can actually listen to it. So I am so excited about Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly. I'm excited that they're going against the Coven, right, against Taylor and King, because Masha and Killer are high echelon female wrestlers, and the Coven has the first ever knockout tag team title winner being Taylor Wilde, a legend, a future Hall of Famer. Okay, and this is going to be a good match. This was a good promo. It was creepy. They're like frenemies. That's the best thing about it. But they're bound in dog chains. Like they had a dog collar match, and there's sort of like this whole thing about them being chained up. And it was just such a impressive promo. The promos that you need before you jump into a pay-per-view. The promos that you need before you jump into a pay-per-view. Now, let's jump into our next match. So, me and my boy were massive fans of this next guy. He's 245 days. He's been the digital media champion, Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry. And I think he is the next big thing. I mean, I followed him for years and years in the UK, Ring of Honor, flipping Impact. He's a great Scar, ICW, and all sorts like that. But I think I could see him being the next Scottish champion of Impact. So we had Drew Galloway back in the day, or Drew Maguire, whatever you want to call him. But I could see him being the next Impact champion, maybe in a year, 18 months, and I think he'd be a great champion all in all. He comes in and he has this great way of being corny and cheesy in a promo and makes it feel sort of like something from the 90s. And he comes in and basically goes to everybody, it's a free country, you can chant what you want. So if you want to chant Kenny's a stripper, okay, go for it. Look, man, if you're new to this, you don't watch Impact or anything like that. Kenny, the person that he's gonna be wrestling in a second, Kenny King is he was a stripper for a bit of his life, and basically Joe Hendry created an amazing song, and you can find that on YouTube. It's actually very good. Okay, mocking him, and basically the crowd are mocking him now. And the funny thing about this whole story is this is a tag team match. Joe Hendry's with Ura, and Kenny and Gene are together, and the match is actually very, very, very good. We see the ability of Joe Hendry's strength, Joe Hendry's power. We see the ability of Ura and how good he is actually in the ring. We saw him have a great barn burner of a match with Hendry, which I was slightly convinced that he was going to take the match. And they've teamed up against King and Gene, but sort of like I like the bit where King walks in and he's wearing a big sweaty hoodie and he's like dead nervous to take his hoodie off because he doesn't want people to start calling him a stripper. And I think this match for me was just a major preview of what is going to happen at Slammiversary between Henry and King. I think it is just a major preview. I think Joe Hendry did his typical power sort of concept, how strong he is and powerful. Kenny did his typical moveset. So it was very, very good. It was a very enjoyable match. It was very story-led in a lot of ways. Joe, towards the end, rips off Kenny's hoodie. Rips it off. King walks off in a strop, okay? Walks out, and basically Gene gets pinned. And it was a good storytelling match. Highly enjoyable. Highly interesting. Looking forward to what was going on to happen this Sunday or Saturday or whenever it is. Saturday night, isn't it? It's Sunday morning for us in the UK at Slammiversary with this match. It is going to be so good. And I just want to throw out this as well. Gene and Ura in this match, their wrestling was absolutely brilliant. It's definitely a worthwhile match, but it's good. It's just good. It was more about the story. It's just good though. All right. And then we moved straight into two really, really good promos, actually. So, Lio Rush. Lio Rush is an interesting guy in the wrestling industry. People have sort of up and down viewpoints about this. And do you know what I like about this? Both these promos that I'm going to talk about, okay, both of them tell the story, all right, of Lio Rush. And I don't think Sabian quite realises what he's done here. Or he might do. They might be calculated and it might be written together in a room while they're eating their catering and sort of like playing with Impact professional wrestling figures or something along the lines. But I doubt it. But they connected really, really well. So Lio Rush comes out and he goes like everybody of his generation. He was a Motor City Machine Gun fan. All right. At the end of the day, like they're 10 years younger than me, and I'm a Motor City Machine Gun fan. Okay. But he comes out and he says, I don't give a damn about nostalgia. I don't give a damn fundamentally about Impact Wrestling. I don't give a damn about the Impact Wrestling brand. I give a damn about my brand. And that's the funny thing. When he was in Major League Wrestling, when his short time in AEW, his time in WWE, and so on and so on and so on, okay, that was Lio Rush's perspective. He was always a selfish bastard that cared about himself, didn't really give a shit, retired every other week, decided he didn't want to wrestle you, was a pain in the fucking ass, okay? And he's still a pain in the ass. But he has adopted his self and his character, put them together, and basically saying fuck you to the system, okay? And this is why it was a very, very important promo. This is why it was a very, very important promo that then followed between a great interview between Gia and Sabian. So Sabian's really honest with him. Says Rush is probably the most talented on this roster or any roster in professional wrestling. And I mean, there is no debate about that. His speed is insane. His ability is insane. Okay? But no one in the locker room likes you. And he goes, from what I understand, is no one in any locker room likes you. He goes, there isn't no cheat code here, kid. Alright? He goes, I am the last boss, okay? And you will be humbled. So the thing about it is, they're connecting the story of Rush together, alright? And building a story. And this X Division champion title match is going to be very interesting. It's the Motor City Machine Gun era, man, first of all. But second of all, we've got guys like Lio Rush, Nick Aldis, and a guy coming in to put a fucking stop to this. And this is why Impact is getting good. Alright? I will say this again. This show was a good show. It was more about the promos, more about the storytelling. I keep going on about storytelling. I must be boring by now. But that is what made this show extremely important. So I'm just looking at my notes here. Now. This is the match that I kind of was most anticipating to love. And I did. And this, I will be very honest, was the best match of the whole entire show. So last week we saw Moose. It's quite interesting, Moose. Moose comes across as a very sort of like stale face, unemotional kind of character. Alright. I loved him when he was the unsanctioned Impact TNA champion. I love that storyline. But he recently lost to Rick Swann. And Rick Swann, great wrestler. Bloody great wrestler. Great guy, great wrestler. And he feels currently that he is not good enough to wrestle in this tag tournament till he's beaten Rick Swann. So there is a tag match, Moose and Myers versus Sami Callihan and Rick Swann. I love Callihan himself. And do you know what convinced me about Moose and Myers, and I'm just going to tell you this, was that Aussie tour. They lost both their matches. No, they lost their tag match, but they were facing ABC, and they did everything right in that match. That was their match to win, fundamentally. They did everything right as a tag team. And the ability of Myers is the best match that I've seen Myers wrestle in the whole of his time in Impact. his second time in Impact anyway. And Moose working with him was great. He did all the right things in the sense of cutting off the ring. They quartered the ring down, so they made the ring smaller than half. They got right up. They did everything right. And this match fundamentally was the same in a lot of ways. Myers' power and size, and do you know what? I always think Myers as being a great in-ring performer. Generally, he can read the ring. He's got a wrestling brain. But I didn't realise his power and size is actually his strongest concept. He's not a small chap. He's not a small chap at all. And he comes in and you can see that very, very honestly that's going to happen. But then we see Rick Swann using his ability, his speed to take advantage of his size. So you've got two guys in there that have wrestling brains that get the game. And eventually what happens is we see Sammy come in, we see Myers come in, we see a massive sort of like scrap between them guys. And it goes down the typical concept of a match just before a pay-per-view, is that with all the great movesets, all the failed cactus drivers, Death Valleys and all sorts of stuff like that, with an amazing super kick party moment, even the mistake that when Myers accidentally kicks Moose in the head with a super kick just after that, it comes down to a point that cheating to win will be Myers and Moose's way, and I'm for that. So what happened was Myers drags out Swann, Sammy tries a cactus driver, some bits and bobs happen, Moose low blows and pins Sammy. This match was a quality match because it had everybody in the ring that had a ring brain. Sammy, great ring brain. Rick, great ring brain. Moose, very good ring brain. Right, and Myers, I think out of all four of them, the best ring brain in there. And I think it was a match that Moose needed to get himself better, get himself feeling like he can do something. And it was just a super good match, man. It was my favourite match of the whole entire show, to be fair. But yeah, good match. This bit I was a little bit disappointed about. Being a Brit, okay, I'm 100% for supporting anybody that is British in that sense. But Subculture did a promo that I did not enjoy at all, and it kind of felt very subpar in that sense. They went down the concept of saying all the weirdos, basically, all the subcultures, blah blah blah, we're here doing this for you. It wasn't very good. But the thing about it is, the great thing about Subculture, they are actually better wrestlers than they are promo guys, so they will be awesome in the match. I've never seen a bad match by any of them. Then Alan Angels. Oh God, I love Alan Angels. Just love him. I think ever since the Dark Order, and he got to sort of like become a little bit more himself in Dark Order, okay, and then coming into Impact and then joining another team, all right, and sort of got to be himself. The storyline was that is like, oh fuck you, Dino, man, I want to be me, all right. This promo was actually really good. It's basically the logic of him being a celestial. I can never say the word properly. He's not just an angel. He's more than an angel. He's a god. Okay. And for the past 4 years, I've just been doing what everybody else wants, basically. And X marks the spot. So he's going in there wanting to win that X Division title. And absolutely brilliant. Brilliant promo. Okay. Brilliant promo. And we move into my final bit of today's pod. And I think where it's got to be remembered, okay, that Shelley did a great promo. What has also got to be remembered, that the National Treasure, Nick Aldis, did a better promo. Shelley went down the route of going, look man, I created the wheel. I'm the sensei, I'm the master. You are what you are. But the interesting thing about it is that with what Nick Aldis said, he was reminding people what he was about. We've got to remember, Nick Aldis was the first British person to ever hold a world championship in a major wrestling promotion. Okay, that was Impact TNA. Okay, we've got to remember that he also held that NWA, the Sweet Charlotte, the £10 of gold for 1,000+ days, and there was many special matches in his time period. He had, look at man, Tim Storm, great matches against Cody Rhodes, some great matches against Trevor Murdoch, some great matches. You've also got to remember he did retire Sting. He did beat Jeff Hardy for that belt, and that's the interesting thing. He beat Jeff Hardy, one of the wrestlers that we would say as my generation as one of the greats. He did do all of that, and he did that without being half the man he is now. And he makes this concept of Shelley has this viewpoint of I deserve this, but I'm a man of the people. Okay, right? And he kind of Nick Aldis put a promo out of something very similar the other weekend. It was like, well, you deserve this, but you're a man of the people as well. So do you know what I mean? You can't be both. And he calls Shelley Motor City Machine Guns fans weirdos, cult weirdos. Which I get the logic of why he went down that route of saying that, because Motor City Machine Guns does have a certain fan base, like myself. Okay, and we are peculiar because we base a majority of what we see on people like Sabian and Shelley. Okay, and he is correct. They are cult weirdos. Okay, all right, because you have many wrestlers that come out of the Motor City Machine Guns ways. So like there was a generation that came out of people like Kid Dynamite's ways and Bret Hart's ways. And you know what? Fundamentally that's what Aldis was. Aldis came out of a Harley Race, Bret Harty sort of way of wrestling. He's the current Dungeon champion, so in that sense he has cult weirdos just as much as the Motor City Machine Guns. But his viewpoint is, you don't deserve this. Okay, all right, you didn't earn this in this way. All right, and I love that. I absolutely love that. One thing Nick Aldis, Magnus, flipping Oblivion from Gladiators, he has that ability to overpower everybody, okay, with his promos. He has the ability to speak like a god. I remember watching, I'm a Strongman fan as well, so I remember when he was doing the Ultimate Strongman TV show, and I always tended to think that he overpowered the Strongman a lot of the time in the way he spoke and the way he did his ability. And when he was on Gladiators, when he was doing Oblivion on Gladiators, he had the ability to do that then. He used to speak to people, okay, like you're a piece of shite. And Nick Aldis did that in NWA as well. He had this craziness where he could take control of a room in about 35 seconds. And it's not because of his really posh suit. It's not because he held a big belt or anything like that. It's because his talent is specifically, okay, being a speaker, being a promo guy, being the guy that can talk to you and make you feel like this small. He's all about the psychology of Aldis. But I'm not going to lie, Aldis has got a great moveset, Cloverleaf. That massive elbow he does off the top of the ropes. He's got a good moveset. He's a solid wrestler as well. There's no debate about that. You can see that he was trained correctly. He's a solid wrestler. And that is the match that I'm not sure who wins this. And for my personal viewpoint, I'm not sure who wins this as well, because I grew up I'm the same age as Aldis. I grew up in a similar, literally half an hour drive away from him. So he's one of them wrestlers that, as an English guy, I've always known about him. He's like a hometown hero and all that sort of concept. So that is going to be an exciting match. Now the final match of the night after that promo was an interesting one. It was a open challenge. So Deonna wanted to prove her ability to the women's dressing room, prove her ability to Trinity. And she didn't have to do this because she's got nothing to prove. Okay? And she made this massive point of saying, I've still got a chip on my shoulder and I always have a chip on my shoulder. Okay? I'm a three-time knockout champion and I've still got a chip on my shoulder. Okay? And guess who comes out? Guess who comes out? The unbeaten Jodie Farrell, which I love her. Do you know what she reminds me of? She reminds me of very early Ruby Riott. Okay, and I know she's been around for a fair while. I know that she's Canadian, so she's one of Scott's people. Okay, in that sense. But she turns up for this this open challenge, and it got my heart pumping, fluttering. It was so good. So Jodie comes out, she hits a wrist lock, Deonna rolls out of it. Jodie actually out wrestles Deonna in the first bit of this match. There is a massive what do they call it? Headlock sort of like takedown into a headlock by Deonna takes control. And then what happens at this point is Jodie gets a cheeky pinning. She's working smart, not hard at this point. Jodie hits this massive suplex and then starts kicking and punching, does these big knees. Deonna at this point as well has had a feeling time period, so she gets what Jodie's about. She's obviously done her homework. So she is now working out what Jodie does. And this is why Deonna, I will say this, is the number one ranked wrestler for me in the world. I say this all the time. I say this on my other podcast as well with Don't Call Me a Diva, that she is the number one ranked wrestler in my perspective in the world because she has a brain that not many other wrestlers have. So in 20 years' time, I hope we say that she is like Bret Hart in the sense of technical ability, or Owen Hart in the sense of technical ability, or Kurt Angle in technical ability, because she has all them abilities. And there's this moment where she does a Russian leg sweep, okay, and puts her into the Fusio armbar, okay. Jodie reverses it at that point, and then there's a lovely suplex that comes out, big kick, a double knee, and then Jodie does her own German suplex, and it is very good. And she does this great thing where she cannonballs off the top rope, and it leads into a clothesline, into a pin. And what happens at this point is, this is where Deonna's that good. She reverses, and she puts it back into the armbar. Jodie taps. 1, 2, 3. That chip in the shoulder, okay, is still there, but it's less deeper. Because what she did in that match, okay, was prove how fucking good she was. And what happened at this point? Giselle Shaw runs out, all her crew runs out, people punching the crap out of each other. Rush and Jessica runs out, the Coven runs out, Killer and Masha runs out, Trinity ends up running out, and it ends up with Trinity and Deonna staring each other in the face. And they fight over the belt. Okay, and that's kind of where it ends, and it ends in an important place. They had a little flood, didn't they? A little scrap, but it ends in an important place because that's telling the story of what's going to be happening when Deonna meets Trinity. Now, look, man. As I said to you, the important thing about this episode wasn't that it was an amazing episode. It was an episode to tell a story, to tell a tale, to tell a fable. Okay, and that is one of the big things about professional wrestling. Not every week needs to be a barn burner or a slobber knocker, as Jim Ross will say. All right, but what every week needs to be doing is telling the tale to lead to the pay-per-view, because the pay-per-view tends to be the end point. Okay, Slammiversary, similar to WrestleMania, is the end of the year in a lot of ways for wrestling. We kind of see a reboot after this at this point, and it is going to be a good pay-per-view. Okay, and look, guys, I'm going to tell you this now. So tomorrow, me and my boy John, we are going to be reviewing another Slammiversary match. Okay, John's choice. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. John loves wrestling. He's obsessed with it. So and he wanted to come on here and talk about his favourite match. And then later in the day, maybe in the evening after I finish work, I am going to jump back on Twitch and YouTube and give predictions. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if I'm right. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I'm not very good at predictions. I'm wrong most of the time. But yeah, listen to me. Anybody that's been listening or anybody that listens to the YouTube, I am so thankful. Okay, all right. It's been a great week. I've been streaming every single day this week, and it's been fantastic and fun because I love Impact Wrestling. I have a genuine passion for this product. But listen to me, guys, I love you. Thank you very much.